Um, we'll welcome everybody in here. Let me get this going live on Facebook and 1, 2, 3. There we go. Preparing to stream. Yay. Welcome everybody as you're coming in here for the webinar on audiobooks, and we're going to talk about some DIY solutions. Yay. Okay, let's see. I've got everything pulled up I need. Just make sure everything is good on this end. You know, there's all the things that come along with that. We have started. Okay, everybody's here. Yay. Go ahead and let us know in the chat. Are you already in the process of an audiobook? Have you ever done an audiobook before? Maybe hired a company and now are looking to do another one on your own? Are you just thinking about an audiobook? Where are you in the process? We would love to know. Okay, good. Lots of people are thinking. Well, lots of people. So far, we have 2 comments. 3 people thinking about it, doing all those things. Good, good, good. Well, you are in the right place today. All right, hold on. Microsoft Outlook. I do not need you open right now. Things are popping up at me like crazy. Okay, well, this is exciting. For those of you who are new to me, maybe you saw one of our ads or are brand new to the community. My name is Alexa Bigwarf. I'm the host of the Women in Publishing Summit and founder and CEO of Write, Publish, Sell. Through Write, Publish, Sell and through the Women in Publishing Summit, it's our goal to help authors in the process of their journeys, writing, publishing, and selling, and providing resources, free resources and training, as well as our annual conference through the Women in Publishing Summit. So we love to bring forward, you know, there's so many things going on when you're trying to get that book out into the world and market it and make sure people know who you are and know who the book is, because it's hard work trying to sell a book. And audiobooks are just a wonderful addition to your package of what's available. The thing is, people like to consume books in different ways. Some people like to read them on an e-reader. Some people like to have them in print. Some people like to listen. More and more and more and more people are consuming books via audiobook. That's not a new trend. That's been trending over the past few years, but it is not, I shouldn't even call it a trend. It's becoming a must do, must have for a lot of them. And Sherry and Brian are nodding their heads in agreement with me here. So we're going to dig right into it, but I just wanted to let you know, if you found this through, you know, if on the website and joined for free, if you haven't gotten your ticket yet, we are in early bird sales, $100 off for the conference. That's going to end on December 1st. So I really, really encourage you to grab your ticket before the price starts going on up. You can grab those at womeninpublishingsummit.com. And we are already doing pre-conference events, networking, and all kinds of fun stuff. It is a jam-packed schedule this year with just absolutely wonderful content, focusing really heavily on craft and, of course, marketing and author business building. So that's going to be amazing. And just one last housekeeping thing before I introduce our guests and get right on into the content. We have a Q&A box. If you're new to Zoom, if you scroll over the bottom or tap on your screen, if you're on mobile, you should see a little box that says Q&A. If you have questions, please put those in the Q&A box. You are more than welcome to chat and discuss in the chat box. But if you have a question, we don't want to miss them. So please use those, and we'll have time for questions at the end. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about who we are talking today. So we have Sherry Ward, who's the founder and CEO of Square Tree Publishing and has been in the publishing industry for over 8 years. With over 25 years of experience as a professor and educator, Sherry is uniquely qualified in all types of curriculum development and has been featured for her curriculum on Good Morning America, the Home and Family Show, and media all over the world. She's also the author of Finding Freedom Was Just the Beginning and A Journey Out of the Wilderness, which brings hope and healing to those who are discouraged and feel like giving up. Boy, that sounds like a book that almost everybody needs at this point in time. Through her work with survivors, she takes on social justice issues, including human trafficking, with a heart of passion. And I am fully on board and love that mission. I'm never letting the grass grow green, very long under her feet. She looks forward to her next big adventure, one that will stretch around the world. We have a lot of commonalities there, Sherry.
I know.
and then we have Brian Gillette. Is it Gillette or Gillette? You never know.
Gillette, just like the razor.
Just like the razor. Okay. Brian Gillette is a producer, voiceover artist, and sales consultant, best known for his online course, The Feel Good Close. Feel Good Close, Feel Good Close.
Feel good clothes. That's right.
Feel Good Close. Okay. He is known as a voiceover artist for his professional narration and character/accent work. How fun. Just as an FYI, as part of this, you will get a free 15-minute consultation should you want it. So should you want to move forward to discuss having them produce your professionally record the book with real actors in LA. And we'll make sure that we share that link with everybody when the replay email goes out and in the notes and all the places. So thank you two so much for being here today. We also have another resource that we'll include in the link as well. And I'm really excited about this because audiobooks, I've been publishing books now for almost a decade, and audiobooks has always been something that I have wanted to do. I've helped other authors that we've worked with one-on-one to go through the process, but have never done it with some of my books, mostly because of the intimidation factor and all of those things. So I'm really excited to have you all talk us through this process and see what's going on. So thank you for being here. And I'm going to turn off my video and audio and let you two take the show.
All right. So Brian, do you want to share screen?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
So
Cool.
what we're going to talk about at the beginning is why an audiobook. So on the next screen, Brian, you'll see. So I know that Alexa has talked about this, but there's 22% more audiobooks purchased than ebooks right now. And it is a growing industry. It's $1.2 billion industry right now, and double digits growing every year. So this is something that you really need to get on board with, especially if you've already written your book. This is a great transition into your next part of your journey. It's another way to capture brand new listeners because, as many of you know, we're so busy these days that we can't always, get to reading the book. I know I love to read, but I don't always have time to read. So 57% of audiobook listeners say that they don't have time to read books, but that's a $600 million audience who would never buy your book without an audiobook. So it's definitely something that you need to pay attention to. And we're here today to talk about different ways to do that, whether you want to DIY it. And if you do, things that you need to pay attention to. And you want to evolve with this new world of readers, and you need to compete with the massive world of podcasts. So podcasts, Brian, is just growing like crazy.
Yeah,
so
it's wild.
Yes.
Yeah, it's Alexa mentioned that I work a little bit in the industry, and I have had two producers that I know who've come up to me who've asked me to build a pitch deck for a podcast because they said I have meetings with iHeart and I have meetings with all these big radio networks, and they're trying to buy podcasts. They're throwing money at them as fast as they can. And I don't have enough ideas.
Wow.
So I need more ideas for podcasts. So that world obviously is booming. It's still not even as saturated as blogs, meaning it's going to continue to grow. And that's the same audience. The podcast listener and the audiobook listener, they're the same audience. And so you need to give an opportunity. You need to be in that medium for sure. But yeah, I want to jump in here and I want to talk a little bit about some specifics. So I produce audiobooks, and I got into producing voiceover because I wanted to be a voiceover artist. And I realized, well, I'm just going to figure out how to do this myself. So I learned how to edit, I learned how to record, and now I do my own projects. And of course, I then started producing other people's projects. So I want to get into some specific tips on overcoming those intimidation barriers, those things that make it too intimidating to start a project. I want to be as helpful as I can. And I'm going to go really fast, okay, because we have a lot to cover and I want to have a lot of time for questions. Plus, this is recorded, right? So we can always go back and review. I'm going to start with your 4 basic tips. When somebody calls me, I get a call probably once every 2 or 3 weeks with somebody saying, sheepishly asking me, hey, I'm trying to get into voiceover. Do you have any tips? And I say, do you want to do audiobooks? If they say yes, I say, number 1, you need to be listening to audiobooks. Okay. This is your main way of knowing how people are doing, what they're doing. It's just like, if you want to make movies, you got to go to the movies. If you want to make audiobooks, you got to listen to audiobooks. Learn how other people in your genre are doing things. There are some industry standards, but it is largely it's like a one level industry, that there's no one way of doing anything. So as long as you're within the technical requirements of whatever distribution channel you're on, you can do whatever you want with an audiobook. So learn from what people are doing that you like, that you don't like. Number two, ask for help. If you're going to self-publish, self-produce an audiobook, I guarantee you do not have all the skills, knowledge, and all of the tools and equipment that you need just sitting around. You've got to be willing to find somebody. If somebody has a great recording space, or you know somebody, I think that so-and-so has a microphone from, they're in that band, whatever, pull on those people. What I have found continually to be really helpful is that people love being involved in production. People like doing it just to say that they helped. Okay. So you'd be shocked how much help people are willing to give you. Okay. Just don't be afraid to get support in those areas. We don't have the expertise. Number three, I always tell people to take their time. It's really tempting when you get into the weeds on a project to just start going, do we need this part? And start cutting corners to try to save money. But do not rush your project. Don't get impatient. Okay. You're never going to have to relive the 2 extra hours it took to re-record because you made a mistake, but you're going to have to relive a bad audiobook for the rest of your life. Okay. So just spend the time, right, Sherry?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what, in the pro world, we take our time. You'll be glad that you did. And finally, don't be afraid to do it. Anybody in here written more than one book? Give me a quick shout out in the chat. Anybody you've written more than one book? I'm sure some of you have. Yeah, some of you have. Yes. Okay.
9. We have one that was 9.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, that's Aviva. Have you gone back and read your first book recently? Anything in there you wish you could change? Right. Re-editing now. See, this is just the nature of life, is your first time doing something, it's going to be imperfect. And you can't let that be the reason you don't do it. Right. So be ready to make an imperfect project that will be good enough. Okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. And sounds like silly advice, but this is real advice. Have fun. If you have fun when you're producing a project, people can tell. And if you're miserable while you're producing, people can tell.
I love, somebody said, launch it ugly. I love that. I'm going to steal that.
Launch it ugly.
I love it.
Yes. Absolutely. Launch it ugly. So, hey, there's 2 different kind of ways that you can produce a book. I'm going to break these down real quick, kind of the pros and cons of each one. And there really are some real pros and cons to each. So the first is DIY. This is what it looks like to do it yourself. The main advantage of doing it yourself is you don't have to pay anybody, right? Lower cost. But with that lower cost usually comes more time. As you know, when you're trying to learn something that somebody else does professionally and you're doing it yourself, it just takes you more time. If you have time to throw at that project, this can be a really great way. Creative control. There's only one director. You are the dictator. So that for some people is a huge advantage. If you struggle with creative control, if you struggle with letting other people give input creatively, then DIY might be the right way for you to go. Now, there isn't, because we are recreating an existing published work, there isn't as much creative license as there is like when you're writing the novel, right? Like we're not telling a different story, but it's about creativity in the way that we portray it, primarily in the area of performance. So so in that way, there is a lot of room on how you can perform the work, but you don't have to. If you want to be the only voice, you don't have to argue with anybody. No royalty sharing. You own 100% of the back end when you do it yourself. You don't have to pay anybody. We're going to talk about royalty sharing here a little bit more in a minute. You can learn as you go. This is something really important people forget about producing. It takes 3 to 6 months to shoot a 2-hour movie, and it takes 2 years to create it, right? There are a lot of steps in production, and you don't have to know how to do post-production in order to start pre-production. All you have to know how to do is the thing in front of you, right, Sherry?
Totally. Just get started.
Yeah, just start it. And it's okay that you don't know how you're going to finish, it's a good idea to know where you can get that training and resources. But if all you have is enough to get the first step started, do the first step and then start executing step 2 as you go. So that's something that I feel it's really important to remember. There's a lot of prep work that goes into getting ready for an audiobook. Like prepping your manuscript for an audiobook means anything that's a hyperlink or anything that's visual, you have to redraft into something that can be verbally portrayed. Things like that can be really helpful. There's something that you can do today to get started. Doing it yourself, one of the main drawbacks can be that it can be a lower quality recording. This isn't necessarily the case, of course, but essentially, if you, rather than bringing in professionals who have the equipment already existing and the recording environment already existing, it can be a little bit harder to match that quality when you don't have the experience or the equipment.
And sometimes, remember, we just had that client recently who they had a professional quality recording, but it didn't match the requirements when they uploaded it. So then they had to go back.
Yeah. It's really tragic, but they recorded an entire, I think it was 4 hours. It was like 30,000 words, and they had to redo the entire book.
Yeah.
They had to throw away all of that work. It was something like 12 to 15 hours of work that they just had to redo because they made a technical mistake that they didn't, they just didn't know.
So you're going to talk about those technical things to help them.
Yes, absolutely. We're going to get real specific, real granular. You'll be annoyed with me by the end of this with all the details. Real quick, I'm going to cover hiring help. So obviously the pros and cons of going on the hiring some resources can be significantly lower time commitment, because especially if you're not narrating, which if you don't have a passion for narrating, I recommend hiring somebody who does. I really recommend it. Somebody's in the comments was just saying, man, hearing the difference between a voice actor and how I would read my book, mind blowing. You're absolutely right. I've got books that I love that I'm 3% through on audiobooks because I can't stand the reader. They're just so boring.
Even your voice. I mean, if you can hear your voice, it's so deep. And so give them one of I love your accents and people that you play. So you have to hear Brian's accents. They're fun.
Okay.
Putting you on the spot. So.
Yeah. No problem. Yeah. The first audiobook I did, I played 4 characters. None of them were American. And the 2 main characters I played were the 2 male parties in a love triangle with the main character. So I have a lot of scenes where I'm reading just to myself back and forth in dialogue. So there's the relaxed posture, British sort of, he was a pirate, a teenage pirate hunter, if you will, versus the Spanish sort of the passionate, excited sort of Antonio Banderas type. That's you're having so much fun. And then there's the I do Australian and German, and it's great. As an actor, I was always typecast. I only get to play one type of person. As a voice actor, I can be 10 or 70. It's so much fun. Anyway, there's a little bit of sample for you.
Okay, so we're going to get into the next one, which is more than
absolutely
the granular level of what you need.
Yes, let's talk equipment.
Equipment first, yeah.
Yeah, let's talk equipment. So we have this stuff that's available in a handout. So I'm going to go pretty quick. I'm going to give you the wave tops here of this, but we essentially have 3 different packages of equipment. Now, microphone prices change. They fluctuate a lot. Some of these prices might have fluctuated slightly, but this was as it was when we created this slide not that long ago. Some of you may have heard of this microphone called a Blue Yeti mic. Anybody ever heard of that one? Sherry, are you talking on a Blue Yeti right now?
I'm on a Blue Yeti right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Blue Yeti is, it's a USB microphone, plugs directly into your computer. It's honestly, it's pretty phenomenal. I want to hate the Blue Yeti microphone because I want to be a voiceover elitist, but it's great. Anyway, so the Blue Yeti is a fantastic place to start. You do not need there's something called an interface we're going to talk about in a second. You don't need anything. The microphone plugs right in, usually comes with a desk stand. So you don't have to buy a stand. You do need a pop filter. You'll see on Sherry's screen, if you can see her right now, there's a little round kind of mesh disc in front of her microphone. It's called the pop filter. It's really important. It helps a lot with your sibilants, makes your S's less sharp, your F's less sort of sharp, and it also takes the some of the air out of your what are called plosives, your P's and your B's and things like that can pop your microphone. We recommend a set of headphones from Sony 7506s. It's a $99 pair of headphones that I see film producers and music like Grammy award-winning editors use these $100 microphones. And you need something called a digital audio workstation or a DAW. That is the software that you use on your computer to edit the audio and format it in a way that can then be uploaded. There's a learning curve. There's a lot of resources we recommend to start. There's a free one called Audacity. If you use Mac, that you could even use GarageBand to get started as your DAW.
And just for clarity, we have this in a PDF that we can send you, and then it actually has links on Amazon or whatever websites to buy them. So you can go direct. So we even helped you with links and everything else so that you can go get anything that you need.
Yeah. So don't worry about taking notes. But that's the beginner package. The intermediate package is about $500. There's a microphone from a company called Rode out of Australia called the NT1. This is quickly becoming, I think, probably one of the most popular prosumer condenser microphones in the world because it's amazing. It's audibly almost indistinguishable from $1,000 Neumann microphone. We recorded our last 2 audiobooks that we did on this microphone. I'm a big fan, and this particular package, it comes with everything that you need for a condenser microphone or for an XLR microphone, including something called an interface, just a box that turns that converts it to a digital signal to plug it into your computer, into USB. Then you need a stand. You need, I recommended a different set of headphones here. They're a little bit more comfortable for longer listening. When I have to wear headphones for like 6 hours, I can't do cheap headphones. I have to have over-ear monitoring headphones. Janine, I see your question. I'm going to actually answer that in just a second. And then for intermediate, I also recommend that same free digital audio workstation. The advanced side, you'll see another microphone here called the Shure SM7B, which happens to be the microphone I'm speaking in right now. This is a different kind of microphone. It's called an end address dynamic microphone. What's great about this is that it is very sensitive here, but it's not sensitive here. So what's amazing about this microphone is that you can actually invest less energy into soundproofing your space because this is a less sensitive microphone. The Rode NT1, that will hear your neighbor cooking bacon if you turn it up all the way. But so you can capture more nuance of the human voice. The Shure SM7B, this one I'm speaking in now, much less sensitive, but you can hear even over this extremely compressed audio, it sounds pretty good, right? There's no filtering on it. There's no nothing. It's just into the interface into the computer. Interface is the same as the level before. Pop filter is not required for this microphone because it has one built onto it. And then I recommend upgrading to a program called Reaper, which is what I use. I like it because it's $60 and it's specifically made for voiceover. Any of that editing is probably going to be your biggest learning curve of how to use your digital audio workstation. Let's talk. Let me just show you this to make it nice and simple for you so you can see how these things go. You need your mic. Your mic needs a stand and or a shock mount, depending on the microphone. A shock mount is the thing that if you ever see, it looks like a bunch of like cordage that kind of wraps around a microphone. And that makes it so that if the stand or the desk is bumped, you don't hear that going into the microphone. But these are very, very sensitive. So they need to be suspended in a way where they're not picking up, the rumbling of a truck driving by through the vibrations in your floor, stuff like that. Anyway, that's what that looks like. If you were to go with a Blue Yeti or just a USB microphone, look, you skip an entire step. You can just go right into your computer. What do we have next? How to acoustically treat a room. Great. I'm going to go really fast. This is pretty simple. Remove your ambient noises. I think we give a handout for this too, don't we, Sherry?
I think so.
Yeah. So the important thing here is to turn off the AC. Don't bring in any fans. We say in voiceover, fans are loud, but sweating is silent. My narrators come out of the room coated in sweat, and that's how you do it. That's just how you do it. But yeah, those kinds of things. Don't bring electronics in that are going to buzz. Create physical distance from your unpredictable noises. Make sure you're not recording on, on landscaping day, obviously things like that. Then for sound absorption, we want to minimize our hard and reflective surfaces. I have found, the walk-in closet is a voiceover artist's best friend. If you have a walk-in closet, it's a voiceover booth now, and I have an entire voiceover. I can record to an SD card. Everything is battery powered, and I can carry the entire thing on one mic stand. I can literally carry it into my closet, record, carry it out of my closet. No computer needed or anything. It's fantastic. Towels and clothes are much more effective, I've found, than pillows or even some low-cost acoustic foam. Towels are great. I would rather make a sound panel out of a bunch of towels than buy one online. And I think that's pretty much all I need to say there. Here's what the thing I want to make sure we have time for. How are you guys doing? A friend recorded in her why the headphones instead of wireless Bluetooth earbuds? That's a great question. I don't want to do Bluetooth. I don't want to do Bluetooth or wireless if I can help it. Oftentimes, first of all, because you actually get, for the same amount of money, you get a much lower quality sound from the headphones. Like I'll say a wireless headphones are $100 more expensive, but they might not be as sensitive. And what I like is I want a set of headphones early on that you can both record in and edit in, which means you need a really responsive, very sensitive set of headphones. So I don't want to do that on something like my Apple AirPods or something, because you're not hearing the full spectrum. You're not hearing, 0 to 20K to 20 kilohertz. You need more of a frequency response. So I recommend getting higher quality, and Bluetooth can sometimes interfere with some other recording equipment. You can get delays and things like that. So that's why I don't recommend that. What you guys doing?
Let's save some of the questions to the end as well, so we make sure we can get through everything, because we do have quite a bit to share.
Absolutely. But everybody's good? Looking for thumbs up. I'm a very needy presenter. You guys okay? Good. Okay, great. All right. So 2 different ways of hiring a narrator or hiring somebody to help you. You can use the per finished hour or PFH, or you can pay via royalty share. Per finished hour looks like this. You do not pay for studio time. You do not pay everybody by the hour. You pay a fixed cost, usually up front, based off of how many finished hours of recording are going to be in there. We like most people, will round that to 15-minute increments. And we use there's an estimated 9,300 words of your manuscript will equal 1 finished hour. So divide your word count by 9,300. That's how you're going to get a good estimate of how many finished hours of recording there'll be. The advantage here is that there's no royalty sharing. You paid up front and nobody gets any back end. You own 100% of that. No contracts, no long-term commitments. You just paid for a project to be done. Usually with this, that means they do not have any, they don't have any rights to the audio. They will usually assign, or in doing per finished hour, they will assign all rights, which means you could always re-record it in the future, and there would be nothing legally stopping you from doing so. And by using per finished hour, you're going to get a better narrator. The pros in the industry don't do royalty share. The best, they do not. Royalty share is how you get people who are trying to learn the trade. So you will oftentimes find, like if you're casting a narrator, you're going to get a much higher quality narrator by paying per finished hour. But of course, this can be expensive. The per finished hour rates range from anywhere from $50 to $1,000. Literally. And that just depends on lots of factors. But don't pay $50 per finished hour. There's an estimated 2.5 hours of recording and 6 hours of editing per finished hour of audio. So if you know somebody who's willing to work for $5 to $10 an hour, do you think they're going to be great at what they do? Probably not. That's fair to say. Royalty share, there are some real pros here. With a royalty share, there's no upfront investment. You don't pay anything out of pocket, but you split the back end of the book 50-50. Now, this is how it works on ACX, the Amazon, the Audiobook Collection Exchange. That is Amazon's production and distribution arm for audiobooks, which goes to Audible, Apple Books, and Amazon. That's the platform we use. that means the narrator will get 50% of every dollar that your book makes. Also, you only get 40% of the sale from ACX, which means you're making 20 points, 20 cents on the dollar, and your narrator's making 20 cents on the dollar. They have a 7-year contract. They have audio rights to that book for 7 years, which means you will always be paying them for 7 years, and you cannot re-record, you cannot rehire, because legally they are part owner of those rights. And you're, like I said before, usually going to get a less experienced narrator. Oftentimes, these are going to be narrators working under like fake performer names so that they can practice audiobooks. That's most of who is actually doing this. Okay.
We had one of our authors that wanted to re-record it, but remember, she couldn't because she was still under that 7-year commitment. So she could not re-record it for 7 years.
So she was stuck with a bad audiobook.
Yeah.
Nothing she could do about it. So let's not mince our words. We don't like royalty share. We don't think it's the right way to do it. We think it's the misalignment of incentive all the way around. So we really don't believe in it. And it's your book. Like, I understand a publisher taking points if they're helping you distribute and sell. Obviously, that makes sense. But this narrator is not doing anything for you. They're not promoting your book. They're not bringing anything to the table. They shouldn't be getting back in. I'm just going to kind of leave this on screen. If anybody is technically savvy and they want to hear this, Audible's ACX recording requirements are very, very specific.
Very.
They're automated by like AI, which means you can't trick them. You have to be consistent in overall sound. You have to include opening and closing credits. You have to be comprised of all mono or all stereo files. You have to include a retail audio sample. Important things are, you have to have room tone at the beginning and at the end and the specific time lengths, and be free of any extraneous sounds, which means you have to deep breath your audio. You have to make sure there's no vocal artifacts in your audio. There's some ways to do that I'm not going to get into. Your audio needs to measure in a very specific RMS, which of course I'm blanking on what the acronym is, but RMS essentially talks about the overall volume. The actual raw volume of the audio has to be within a really specific range. And RMS changes when you change file type. It can change when you compress. It's really finicky. You have to have a noise floor of minus 60 dB, which is not easy to achieve. This microphone right now, with this loud gaming computer underneath me, I'm probably getting a minus 60 to minus 65 dB. That means this microphone is made for low noise floor because it's so insensitive. It's so directionally specific. But if I had my condenser microphone in here, it would be way too loud. I have to go into my converted closet that I use as a booth. And then they want MP3 at a specific kilobit per second rate and a specific constant bit rate, and you need to record at 44.1 kilohertz. We had somebody record at 48 kilohertz, couldn't figure it out, had to convert. The RMS completely changed. The length of the audio completely changed. Big nightmare. But these things are available on ACX, and it's something to consider. And if you're going to have somebody help you, make sure they understand everything that's on this page. What's the next slide? So what do we do? I'm glad we have a lot of time for questions, because I think there's a lot of really good questions I'm going to circle back to. So do you want to do questions now, or do you want to do this and then questions after, Sherry?
Let's just do this, and then that way it's all the questions at the end. I think that's
Great.
good.
You got it. So what does Square Tree Productions do? We take the best parts of doing it yourself and the best parts of hiring support, and we've really mashed them together. Okay. So when we work with Square Tree Productions, you get creative control because you get to select your own narrator. We have a stable full of my contacts in Hollywood. It's a great time to be producing audiobooks, because guess what? Every actor in Hollywood isn't doing right now. They're not on set. They're all calling me going, "Hey, Brian, what can I do from home?" And guess what they can do? Narrate. So I've got awesome working union actors who are trying to take non-union projects to do voiceover because they need work. And so you're getting, the talent pool is so ripe right now. It's so packed with great narrators. So we let you choose from a panel of narrators so that you can have control over that. We let you select intro and outro music, which is something I really like to help with. which kind of sets the tone. We use just for the credits, we use music because for us, we feel like it packages the book and makes it feel really special. You keep 100% of royalties. We don't deserve any of the back end. We don't, we'll say it another way. You deserve all of the back end for this book. We don't want any of it.
Yeah.
You get one-on-one access to the producer, which is me, and your engineer, so that if you have specific requirements, if you're feeling really controlling and you want to have everything on it, you get access to it. And you greenlight each stage of production. You know when we're in pre-production, you know when we're recording, you have recording dates, and you can hear during the editing process, the post-production.
And then I want to interject one thing. One of our authors, we get a lot of authors with memoirs, and she has a really cute Southern accent. And so she wanted to read her own book. And we get a lot of people that have memoirs that want to read their own book. And so Brian said, well, let me just give you a reel and a sample of somebody that I've got and tell them what happened, because it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I gave her a few different readers. And when I sent her a narrator named Melissa, her husband chimed in and said, hey, when did you record that? When you heard it happening? Because she had really mimicked the author's voice. And the author, she told me she broke down in tears because she said, this is the one. So the advantage, of course, was that we got to have somebody who knows what to do in a vocal booth, who also was here, and the author was in North Carolina.
Yeah, North Carolina.
And I'm in Pasadena, California. So yeah, we got to have somebody who knows the drill already, who could be in the booth, who really emulated that author. And the author is so happy that when she brought her second book, she automatically casted the same reader. And in fact, she had Melissa read in her natural accent, which is like more of a traditional West Coast accent. She said, I don't even care if she sounds like, if she uses my accent in the second one, I just want her because I like her so much.
So I think there's something about the casting piece that you get that professionalism. And because we've had people that are like, no, I insist that I read it. And it actually ends up costing more because it's more time. It's coordinating another studio. We have to make sure that they're following all of those detailed rules, and that studio that you're hiring, it ends up being a lot more, right, Brian?
Oh yeah. Almost always we have almost always found that our price ends up being the same. If you pay yourself for your time, even if you pay yourself a moderate wage for your time, it is almost always the same price or more expensive to record it yourself. Anybody in here ever recorded their own book? Had to rent a studio space, find an engineer, go and read that? It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So I think.
What's our next slide? Okay, so we do have, under squaretreepublishing.com/marketing, you will actually get the buyer's guide. And it's not us. You're not buying it from us. It's on Amazon or some of the other places that you can only get that equipment. So we do have that equipment guide with direct links to make it really easy if you want to DIY this yourself. So Alexa said to put the questions in the Q&A icon so we can open that up. And Brian, I'll go ahead and read them out.
Sure. I'm going to stop the screen share for now.
Okay. So Sue said, I need my book narrated by a particular dialect. Could I show a native speaker how to make an audiobook?
By a particular dialect. Yeah. I mean, could you use somebody? My question would be, is it an uncommon dialect? That kind of becomes a question for me. Because if we're talking about a dialect in like a third world country or something, that would, that is a very different question from, Argentinian Spanish or something, or something like that. But I would say, yeah, I would almost guarantee that if it's a fairly common dialect, there's going to be a narrator for you. We live in LA, which is like one of the most diverse cities in the country. And I've got Filipino, I've got Spanish, I've got Chinese, I've got, I've got every American dialect, that we have. I have access to all of those. I'm one text message away from that. So I would say it's a great place to start to find whoever's going to produce for you, see if you have any of that access. But yeah, I would just try to put that in the casting, say, this is what I need.
Well, the one thing too with our author, she had a really strong Southern accent. So what we decided when we cast her is we made it a softer
Yeah.
Southern accent just so that people could understand it better. So there are even some things that we would shift so that it may not even be dead on, it's super 100% accurate, but we're doing it for clarity for the listener.
Yes. Yeah, very well said. Your likeness, so there's different types of impression. There's imitation and there's evocation. So if you're impersonating somebody using what's called the evocation impersonation method, it means you are evoking their essence without trying to exactly sound like them. And if you have a really specific, uh, the Hoyt-Hoyters on the East Coast, a small island of people with a strange accent that's U.S., you're not going to have a Hoyt-Hoyter actually do that accent. You're going to have somebody who can emulate it or evoke it so that people still feel the story, but it doesn't have to sound exactly like you in order for it to really capture that,
Okay, so the next question is Julia. She said, the book I published in April has been getting a lot of interest lately. Congratulations, including bulk orders and requests for an audio version. It's only in print and ebook. Should I edit and create an updated version or record an audiobook of the book as is?
Maybe I missed the first half, but why would we edit it? Do you mean to like proof the manuscript or?
Maybe she's saying, that can you take any book and make it an audiobook, or are there some things that you have to shift or change?
I see. Yeah, I would keep it as is. Read it the way that it is. For sure. When I said before, you might have to prep your manuscript. There might just be some things in there that like a hyperlink or something like that. That you just might need to do slight revisions, but we can even do that, on the day. That it's not a tremendous amount of work. I would take it as is, and I would record it.
Okay. Sue says, how much do you charge? And that really depends on the length of the book. I mean, you could have 20,000 words. You could have an epic fantasy at, 100,000 words. So
Yeah.
we need to see it in that. If you sign up for that link that I put, and I'll put it again, I've been putting it every now and then because there's a lot coming through the chat. If you sign up there, it'll have a link for the 15-minute consult that'll come to you in an email. So you can go ahead and just meet with us. We can give you a general idea. And then usually there's a couple different choices, depending on what level of actor you want and how many choices of actors you want and that sort of thing. So you get some choices. Caroline said, Brian, can you do Ukrainian? I need a male Ukrainian, lives in Ukraine for my first 2 books.
The real answer is no. Could I do enough Ukrainian to do a likeness at a cocktail party? Yeah, sure. But to tell a story in a way that's honoring to the Ukrainian accent, that's not in my arsenal.
But do you have somebody that you could find?
Absolutely, yeah. Guarantee
Okay.
I could get you a good accent.
Okay. Emily says, in a single first person POV novel, are there multiple narratives to read the dialogue for the different characters? Or is it the same narrator who reads the dialogue as if it's a real conversation occurring rather than, for example, one female character reading for both the female and the male dialogue?
Yeah. Emily, what a great question. You can actually do it either way. Multicast becomes a significantly different type of production. It's a lot harder to do the editing, but depending on how much dialogue there is, the real best way in my mind, the happy medium would be to have a narrator who can do different voices and who can then just throw in a slight difference, a different tone or pitch or something, or slightly different accent to create that likeness. So the best way to do it would get a really talented narrator who can play the parts. Some people want the male voices and female, like they want to bring in, let's say it's from a female protagonist, and you might want a secondary male reader to read the male parts. You can do that. All of that affects the cost of production, but I don't think there's a wrong way. Even just having the narrator read it without really doing voices, I don't think it's the wrong way either. That's what the reader who's reading on the page, they're reading it in their voice. And so I think it works just fine.
So Carolyn said a similar question. I've listened to audiobooks and I don't like the switch between sexes. The male fake voice done by a female can sound dreadful.
Mhm.
And then it said, can an author choose to have male or female? I think you answered
Yeah.
that one.
But she does have that question that you're writing romance books. I mean, I would say that that's specific to genre. For romance, yeah, it would be very it'd break the immersion quite a bit potentially to have one person trying to read it. So absolutely, we can get multiple readers. That's the best answer.
Judy says, Audible said they can hear me turning the pages. How do I overcome
Ugh.
that?
Yeah. How technical should I get, Sherry?
Not technical.
Yeah. Okay.
No, he gets in the weeds, guys. Okay. So
Yeah.
I have to like rein him back a little bit.
The ways to fix that are, if you don't want to redo any of your audio, if you don't want to re-record, you need to do some post-production. I'm going to give you a recommendation, Judy, to there is a software from a company called Isotope. You're going to look into something called RX8. Isotope RX8, either RX8 Elements or RX8 Standard. RX8 Standard is $300. And in RX8 Standard, they have a bunch of really specific effects like deplosive mouth declicks. So this really horrific sound that sounds like this of people's mouth. High power microphones, they hear all that. And you want to pull those mouth clicks out. You can pull out the sound of clothes rustling. You can pull out the sounds of trucks going by if you invest. If you want to do it as is, I recommend using a really clever noise gate with, I would do a high threshold and I would bring some of the dry back in at like a minus 20 dB. Okay. That's as technical as I'll be.
Yeah. Don't get too technical. But maybe they should just hire somebody to pull it out, right?
I would just
Should I
hire
do that?
somebody to be like, fix this. And
Okay.
yeah, that's
Okay,
what I would
that's
do.
good. Sue said very uncommon Southern and Scottish. So I'm not sure what the question is, but maybe if you have Southern and Scottish.
Yeah, there's my Scottish is my Scottish is a little weak for long form. I can do Scottish in short form, but I can't do it long form.
But you could find somebody. Right?
Easy. Yeah.
Yeah,
That we're
yeah.
just talking about just me, one guy. Easy to find.
Tina said, are audiobooks a good way to go for children's books?
Oh, great question. Yes and no. I think that what's really important for children's books is you need to have an audio version of it, which we can produce. I don't necessarily know that putting it on Audible is the right way to go. I would almost consider, because when you use ACX, you don't choose the price of your book. Amazon chooses the price of your book based on the length of recording. Okay.
Say that again. That was really strong.
You do not get to choose the price of your audiobook when you post it on Amazon or using ACX. There are some other avenues where you can, but what they do is they standardize book prices based off of the length of the recording. And that makes it play more nicely with things like Audible. So children's books are usually not very long, which means it's probably only going to be like 99 cents or something, or $1.99 or $2.99. So a children's book is going to do, it's not going to make you $1 million an audio children's book. What you can do is like a read along video, or interject that audio into a podcast, or turn it into something else where you can repurpose that high quality audio into a different medium. So now, putting on my sales hat, I would recommend doing something more like a read along video that you post on YouTube, where you take screenshots of the pages. Have you seen these? I'm sure you have if you write children's books. And then you have the narrator read along. So we can record that audio for you, and then you can repurpose it because you own the rights to that audio. You can put it in any medium that you want. So highly recommend getting audio, because kids like having stories read to them. And get somebody like me who can do all the weird, I can sound like the wolf, and I can sound like the little talking cherry and the cloud, but then put it in a video that your kid will go crazy for. That instead of watching Blippi over and over again, they'll watch your book being read over and over again.
Blippi, that's funny. If your book is a dual POV romance, do you recommend one narrator or two?
Yeah, it's up to you. I would say if it's a same-sex romance, one narrator is probably great. I would say if not, in a perfect world, I would get two narrators.
How much do your DIY packages start? So we at Square Tree Productions don't do DIY, but we gave you, and I sent the link a couple times in the chat. If you sign up, you'll get a PDF form that it'll have links to Amazon and everywhere else that you can buy the equipment. I think that starts at a couple $100 maybe. We start at the beginner packet at middle is 500 or something like that. So it'll all the prices will be on there when we did it, which was a few months ago.
Mhm.
Casey says, where on your website can I find your prices for producing an audiobook? Same thing. So DIY, my book's 92, that sort of thing. You're more than welcome. Again, if you sign up on that link that we gave you, then you can click on for a consultation and then we could talk about what your project looks like because each project is so unique and different.
Yeah.
How does it work when the protagonists are 13 years old and their compatriots are adults?
Yeah, great question. It's the same way that it works when CW makes a TV show about high schoolers. They use 25-year-olds.
Okay.
That's what they do.
Yeah,
That's what you don't get a 13-year-old that has to have a work permit and all that kind of nonsense. You get an 18-year-old who sounds 13. That's really the
I
best
love that.
answer.
I love
Hey,
that.
Dad. I play little kids all the time. So especially women, I feel like women can dematurate their voices a lot easier than some men can. Like I can't make my voice. My voice has a little bit more rumble than a kid's would, but that's the best way to do it.
And we have another one that says, do you cast African American voice talents?
Yes, I have 2 reels on deck for 2 African American women, and I have a African American male who I love named Khalid in San Diego. Just did a Fanta commercial. Yes, absolutely.
And you have to realize we're in Los Angeles, so we have a ton of diversity in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and I'm not about if this is an African American story, I'm not even going to give you my voice. Like there's so much wrong with that. Like no, an African American story, I think it's really important to have it read. To have any voice needs to be read in its voice, or any story needs to be read in its own voice. So I'm a big believer in that.
Jan says, what about middle grade books? Is the audiobook still a valid way to go?
Yeah, I think so. Another thing too, like just a thought is when you have audio, professionally produced audio. I have this, hang on, sorry. The sun moved into my face. When you have professionally produced audio, there's nothing stopping you from turning that audiobook into a podcast audio drama and just cutting it into 15-minute segments, right? Like you could do anything you want with that. You have an asset now that exists. And so it's absolutely, kids don't read, kids listen.
Yeah.
So they're a great candidate for that.
If you don't want to abide by all the ACX restrictions, does Amazon or Audible allow non-ACX books? And what is the alternative called? Luis said that.
Yeah. So Luis, I'm actually going to ask you if you wouldn't mind, if you have a follow-up to this, then you can post it in the chat of if there's a specific restriction you're trying to get around. But if you're just saying, if you want something that is going to be a little bit more forgiving, to get it on Amazon, the answer is no. You can use something like Nook or, there's some other, I'm blanking now, but like there's some other places where you can dictating prices. I see. Yeah. There's some other places where you can post audiobooks and you don't have to use that. Additionally, you can post on ACX, which all audiobooks on Amazon are through ACX. Because that's how you do it. ACX is the back end. It's like the KDP equivalent for audiobooks, right? That's where all of that stuff kind of happens. But you can have a non-exclusive distribution through ACX, meaning you just check the box. Do I want exclusive or non-exclusive? If you're exclusive, you get 40% sale of the sale. If you're non-exclusive, you get, I believe it's 25%, but you now can also distribute your audiobook anywhere else. So then if you wanted to go to Nook or one of the other, I don't know that much about the other marketplaces, to be honest, because ACX is by far the most prevalent for us. So I'm not the person to answer that, but you can get it on Amazon, and then also sell it at a different price somewhere else by using non-exclusive. Yeah, I hope that's helpful.
Okay, so that was all in the Q&A. Let me go back to the chat and see if there's anything else in the chat. So I'm just gonna
Yeah, there were some really
go
good
through.
ones. I'm glad you like that YouTube idea, Judy. I'm glad you like it. There was a post I saw in the chat or a question I really liked.
She said nonfiction, some things still might not be up to date, but I'm not sure if that's a. So how do I keep the breathing noises out of my recording? I think you talked a little bit about that, but maybe we can address that again.
Yeah, there's a couple ways to do it. I'll give you a really, really great practical tip. When you're using a microphone, so what I'm doing right now is I'm using an end address microphone and I'm speaking over it. Now, if I spoke directly into this, I could, and if I didn't use any vocal technique, you're going to get some plosives. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, and you're going to hear the diaphragm move and go, "P, p," that awful sound. But if I say Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers with the air going over the mic, I'm not going to get the plosive. Now, for breathing sounds, there's a lot of off-axis recording types, like recording this direction with a microphone coming into your mouth that way. Additionally, you can point the microphone starting up and pointing down. Never go down and pointing up, because that's going to hear the nasally part of your voice. You want it to point down into your chest. And by doing that, a breath noise and airflow is going to be more directional than the sound frequency of your voice, of your vocal cords resonating. So if you want to lose some of the directional nonsense, like the plosives or some of the extraneous breathing, practice how you're positioning the microphone. Additionally, you're going to want to really learn how to use something called a noise gate. Okay. Any one of those DAWs I talked about has a noise gate. I would go on YouTube and say how to use a noise gate, and then say Audacity or Reaper or whatever program you're using, how to use a noise gate. And that's going to help you figure out. Noise gate decides when the sound is on and off, so that in between your words, your sound goes to zero. And that can help.
Brian, we have a really good question. It says, can you buy out the royalty share contract in a few years?
That's a great question. The contract terms can be individual, but by default, royalty share terms, no, you cannot. No, you cannot, because they don't get paid, right? And so they don't get paid up front, which means they only get paid on the back end. So it's possible to do that depending on the narrator. But the way that, like, ACX gives you default templates for contracts and you cannot buy them out. But you could always try to redline it and redo. But then the question becomes, do you want to be negotiating a contract over hundreds to thousands of dollars over 7 years with somebody who you met on the internet? That would be my follow-up question.
Okay, so I think we've covered them all. If there's anything else that you guys have, if you want to let us know, but that's it.
That was really great information. I mean, it always amazes me. Like, sometimes you listen to somebody, a professional in their field like you, and you think to yourself, holy cow, like all the little intricacies that you never think about, like how far your microphone is, which direction is pointed, all these types of things. Like, it's amazing, and also a really good reason why you want to hire. I mean, because the reality is, whenever we're talking about money and spending money on things, like, I know I'm doing my own books too. I know it's hard when you look at all the expenses, editor, book cover, design, all the things. There's a lot of money invested in this. And you might think to yourself, well, where can I make some shortcuts? But here's the other answer to that, is that if you make shortcuts, is it going to reduce the quality of your book so that people aren't going to want to buy it, or they're going to return it or complain about it or leave negative reviews? Same audiobooks, same with cover, like, hire the professionals if you don't know how to do it as a professional, because at the end of the day, you're trying to sell books, and the more you can do to make it as professional as possible. I mean, you're competing with big companies who spend thousands and thousands of dollars to produce these books and market these books. Yours needs to be out there. And for those of us on shoestring budgets or can't do it, then I guess my response is then wait until you can figure out a way to do it so that you can do it right. budget for it, do something, see if you can get, I don't know if y'all, I know you said the money is due up front with audiobooks. I understand that. Like you can't, payment plans just don't work, because if somebody craps out on you after you've done 15 hours of work, that's
Mhm.
totally fair of that. But that's my little rant on that. I mean, it's so the longer I'm in this industry and the more that I see, I mean, millions of books, millions and millions and millions of books that we're all competing with. So make yours as high quality as possible. And I thought this was, yes, Judy, that's a great question. You actually do need a special cover for the audiobook. It's sized a little bit different. It's more of a square, and most professional cover design artists know how to do that. Do y'all provide that with part of it? I know some audio,
Yeah, we do.
they provide it.
So the one thing we want to do too is not only do we produce it, but we upload it for them.
Mhm.
So that if there's any issues at all, then Brian goes in and fixes it so that there's no issues. We guarantee that it will be approved and that it
Yeah.
gets uploaded and the right sizing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I personally upload into your ACX account, which means I personally make sure every file passes both rounds of quality assurance. So you're never going to get a book and then 4 months later be like, oh, there was an error. There's no chapter 4 in this book, because we do it. We do it for you, which includes the cover art. I also realized, I know we're out of time, but I didn't even cover one of the best ways to make money on an audiobook, which is the Audible bounty.
Talk about it. Yeah. I mean, there's no hard rule on when we stop this webinar. So
Great. Okay. So, I'm remembering, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name of, but the question of, hey, Audible seems like a real pain. Is there anything we can do around it? So there is a way of making a lot of money on Audible, and it's something called the Audible Bounty Program. So has anybody ever gone on Amazon and you see a book up there and it says, get a 7-day free trial and listen to this book, right? And then you enter your credit card, you get a 7-day free trial to Audible. So here's what Audible does to incentivize us as authors and creatives to get more Audible customers is if somebody clicks on your book to get a free 7-day trial for Audible, and then they end up keeping their Audible membership, you will get paid. Right now, it's $75. So a $10 book that you make $4 on before taxes just made you $79 instead of $4, because you got an Audible membership for Audible, which is why we use Audible and ACX specifically, because you already have a bank of people who've read your book. And if we know 57% of audiobook readers won't ever read books, it's a very good likelihood that some of your readers don't have Audible accounts. And how many of them would love to reread your book or listen to it read by you or listen to it read by a professional author? You already have an audience of people, of a proven audience that you probably have contact information for, that you can then go back in and say, hey, get a free Audible trial and download my audiobook. X percentage of them are going to stay on, and you're going to make money. That's called injecting yield into an existing client base, right? You're going to make money off of the people who've already bought your book. They got a free copy of the audiobook, and you made $75 ahead by getting them into Audible. So the bounty program, it was $25 for a long time. And then I think the beginning of 2020 or something, they upped it to $75. So that's what it looks like right now. There is a real way to make some serious cash if you are smart about it and you know how to get people into Audible using your book. So that's just another reason we highly recommend it.
Thank you. That's a great resource. And I assume you can't go into that until you have an audiobook to go into it. So that's something to consider for later on.
Yep.
All right. Well, this has been really great information. I appreciate both of you coming and taking the time, and we'll make sure we get all of those checklists or worksheets, not worksheets. My brain's someplace else. All the handouts. The handouts is the word I'm looking for, to include those in the replay. And I'm sorry, I'm so distracted by the noises of my computer. Usually I use earbuds and I don't hear all of that stuff. So everything's like, stop. Nobody. Speaking of the things that happen when you're doing audio things that pop in there and annoy you, see, great case in point. But this has been phenomenal. We appreciate you taking your time so much. Audiobooks we get asked about all the time, and I'm very, very happy to have another resource to send people to, because that's not my lane and I have no interest in going down it. So now we've got you guys as a resource.
Yes.
Thank
Oh,
you
So
for
happy to
having
be
us
here.
on so much. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yes.
big time.
All right. So don't forget, make sure you go over and grab your tickets this month before the price starts increasing on the Women in Publishing Summit. And we will send you the replay of this recording. You can also always find our webinars on the Write Publish Sell YouTube channel. That's a branded channel for Write Publish Sell and Women in Publishing Summit, or follow our page. You can watch the replays over there. If you're impatient to watch it before we get the replay to you, we'll send everything out, and we appreciate you all very much. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Bye, guys.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.